All right, let's get things started here. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is John Levis. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at LogRocket, and we are really excited to share this great story with you today around LogRocket and Expo's EAS services and how the two can work together to really sort of unlock the possibilities of your native mobile applications. Quick housekeeping before we get into today's agenda. We are recording this session, so don't worry about taking notes. We'll be sending out the recording afterwards, and you can go back and reference anything that you missed then. This is also a live webinar, and so we encourage you to ask a lot of questions, anything that pops into your head. We've carved out a few minutes at the end of the webinar for you to ask any and all questions you have to our presenters. So go ahead and use the Q&A functionality at the bottom of the Zoom window to ask questions just as they pop into your head. All right, in terms of what we'll be covering today, we have some quick introductions. We'll be talking a little bit about what LogRocket and Expo are, then how the two work together. We'll spend a little bit of time doing some demos for you guys so you can see it in action and really make it real. And then last but not least, like I said, we've carved out this time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I will hand things over to our presenters, Matt and Charlie, to introduce themselves.
Thanks, John. Yeah, good to see everyone on and excited to share more today. I'm Matt Arbesfeld. I'm co-founder and CEO here at LogRocket. Have a technical background. I was an engineer at Google working on the Chrome JavaScript engine, then also at Meteor and Apollo working on their mobile app framework. So yeah, excited to share more with you today. You muted, Charlie.
Classic Zoom mistake. I'm Charlie Cheever. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Expo. I also have a technical background, and I basically started working on Expo because of how hard it was to make mobile apps when I wanted to, and sort of a few years ago. And so, you know, we've done some really exciting work, and it should be a lot easier to use LogRocket with Expo now. And we're excited to talk to you about how that works.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Charlie, I'll keep it with you, and you can tell us a little bit about both Expo and EAS.
Okay, awesome. So what Expo is basically like, it lets people who have web developer skills, who can build like React web apps, build, you know, apps that work on any platform. So you write one React code base and you get an iOS app that looks and feels and just basically is like a native iOS app, best in class. Same thing with Android. You get a real Android app, not something that's sort of based around HTML5. And you also get a really nice website if you want it. You know, you can also target only one of these platforms or 2 out of 3 or whatever. Eventually we may add more like desktop and PlayStation and things like that. But for now we're focused on these 3: iOS, Android, and web. And the other thing that's really great is we also help you with all these other things if you want, where we can help you doing any kind of native builds you need to do for submitting to the App Store, for having testers, for adding native code. That happens through our EAS build service. And then we'll help you submit to the app stores. And then we'll also do this thing called updates, where if you need to push out a bug fix or something like that, that just requires a change of your JavaScript code, our CDNs and our service can actually help you get that out to all your users in seconds. And so Expo is organized into sort of the Expo open source project that's free to use, totally open source, just up on GitHub. You can check it out, you can modify it, you can do whatever you want to do it with it. But then we also run these cloud services that we call Expo application services, or EAS, that are EAS build, EAS submit, and EAS update that complement the open source project. And a lot of our the developers who use Expo really like to use. Today, we're going to use EAS build to build an app binary that has a LogRocket native code in it, so that we can do all the sort of advanced things that LogRocket does with like session recording and playback and things like that, that wouldn't be possible just by writing some React JavaScript in the sort of vanilla, you know, Expo code base.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. Matt, I'll pass it over to you to talk a little bit about LogRocket.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's cool to hear, Charlie, that you started a company based off of your struggle building mobile apps. I think I had the same struggle. My problem is we launched a mobile app into the App Store, and we were so excited. We got thousands of signups in the first few days. We realized no one was buying what we were, our in-app purchase, and we were pulling our hair out, figuring out what went wrong, complaints would come in. It would take us a while to figure out what happens to the users. And then to your point, it took us many days to get that update out there. So that was the original inspiration behind LogRocket, was seeing apps are growing in complexity. Any kind of application we use, be it a business application or financial services or buying something online, those apps are more complex than ever. And there's more chances for things to go wrong, be it errors or performance issues or weird screen sizes or things not displaying. It became really difficult to figure out what's happening to my customers, where are their problems. So if you go to the next slide, John, these were some of the issues that I experienced as a front engineer. Seeing in my tools like Datadog, tons and tons of front-end errors, but struggling to figure out what are the important ones? What are the ones that are actually impacting my customers? Or on the business side, I'd be looking at our analytics and see our conversion rates are down. People are not buying, or they're getting stuck at this certain step of the funnel. What's wrong? Are there technical issues? Are there performance issues that are causing issues? And then something I think we've all experienced as engineers or product people is a user has an issue or the CEO says something's broken, and figuring out what happens to that user is super difficult. So these were some of the problems that my co-founder and I, we were experiencing when we were building our apps, and really struggled to find solutions to those problems. And that's why we came up with LogRocket. And what we do is the core of our product is what we call session replay. And so we'll show this in a bit, but it's the ability to actually watch what your users are doing in the app. So where they're clicking, what they're seeing on the screen, where they may be running into errors. And then we combine that with performance monitoring and product analytics to give you a holistic view into what's happening with your application and what are the biggest opportunities to improve user experience. And so some of our customers, it varies all the way from consumer applications to business to financial services. So it's great to be able to work with some of the leading product companies around the world on both their web and mobile applications.
Awesome. All right, Charlie, I'm going to pass it back to you. We can sort of put the two pieces together and see what this flow looks like.
Yeah, and so if you kind of take the two ideas that Matt was talking about, that he and the team at LogRocket have built to sort of make mobile app and just app development better in general, and then the ideas that we have at Expo, you can actually get this incredibly powerful loop where you start by writing your app in React, say, and then you can compile in using EAS build, or you can do it yourself on your computer, but it's a lot easier with EAS build, but take care of everything for you. You can compile in the LogRocket code that you need and any other libraries you need if you need sort of special fancy camera things or fluid simulations or anything like that. And then Expo EAS can also help you submit to the App Store. Again, you can do this yourself if you want. This just makes it easier for you. And then once you get your app out in the wild, you can use LogRocket to understand everything that's going on with your users. Watch them, stumbling through problem areas in your app or having great experiences in the parts that you did really well, and just like learn what's going on. And then as you learn that, you can actually really quickly go back to that develop step, change your app, update your React code, things like that. And then, push out with the EAS update, same day, moments later, all your users will get this app update with the new version of the JavaScript that they need, even without having to update through the App Store, things like that. And then you can start recording those sessions and playing them back for yourselves, figuring out what the new set of problems are. And this loop can be really, really, really tight. Like you can make a bunch of iterations in the same day based on learnings that you're making in almost real time. And we think that, like, compared to the flow that Matt was describing of, writing a whole bunch of, Objective-C or Swift or Java, and then, probably setting up video recording sessions with users to, like, force them to walk through the app, and then, making a bunch of changes and then submitting to the App Store, waiting for that to be approved. We think this is so much tighter and so much faster that people will be able to make much, much better products.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So yeah, that was kind of the theory. That's how it works. That's how the two things work together. I imagine many of you who joined us today say, that's great. I really want to see how it works in practice. So that's what we're going to show you now. We have a little video here from Charlie, who's going to do kind of a walkthrough on the actual build in Expo and installing LogRocket. And then we'll hop into LogRocket itself, and we'll kind of show you what a fully fledged LogRocket dashboard is going to look like and how you can use it to understand these issues and quickly make those fixes to improve your apps. So I'm going to switch over to the video now, and we'll get started.
Should the audio be playing, John?
Just a second, folks. Let's make sure this audio is working for us.
You may have to do share with, if you stop share and share again and say share with sound.
All right, why don't we try this?
Install this tool called Volta. I can just go to the Volta website and find the instructions here. I just copy this curl command and I'll paste it into the command line here. Then I'll just type Volta install node yarn Expo CLI EAS CLI. Those are the main tools I'll need at the command line to do what I'm going to do today. I hit enter and those will start installing. That'll just take a minute. So while that's happening, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up my phone. I'm going to go to the App Store and I'm going to search for Expo Go there. Expo Go will help us preview the app as we're building it on our actual device. So I'll just download this from the App Store. That'll just take a minute. And bam. Okay, now these tools are installed on my computer. So now I'm just going to run in any directory I want, Expo init. I'm going to call my project Dog Gallery since we're making a photo gallery of dog photos. And I'm just going to make a blank project. This will take just a minute to install all the NPM modules that our project's going to depend on. Once that's ready, I can just go into the dog gallery directory. And then like it says in the instructions here, just run yarn start. This will bring up the Expo developer tools in my browser. What I can do now is I can actually go to my camera on my phone. Assuming I have the Expo Go app installed, then when I open the camera on my phone and I point it at this QR code here, when I put the camera over the QR code, this little yellow bubble will pop up that says open an Expo Go. If I tap that, it'll open the Expo Go app and actually open my app that I just created. So this will just take a moment to bundle up all the JavaScript and send it over to the device. But once that happens, you can see it'll say open up app.js to start working on your app. So I'll follow those instructions and I'll open up this directory and I'm going to go into it and find app.js. And look, here is this code that says open up app.js to start working on your app. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to change this and replace this text with something that says, let's learn to use Expo and LogRocket together, exclamation point. I'll save this and you can see a second later, this text now appears here. Every time I save, the app will just update on my device. So that's really cool. So another thing that's really convenient is that somebody already made a dog photo gallery Expo module. So I'm just going to add this to my project. I'm going to type Expo install Expo dog gallery. That'll just take a minute to install, but now I've got it in my project. So now I can just say import dog gallery from Expo dog gallery, and then just throw in here a dog gallery with, let's say, 8 dogs. I'll get rid of this text. Now I'll save this. If you look at the phone, now, oh, there's a random picture of a dog. Oh, if I swipe, now there's more dogs, another dog, and I can pinch to zoom in, and I can swipe back and forth, and it's a really native iOS app experience. Looks great, feels great, and I'm happy with it. Great, okay. But now let's say I want to use LogRocket so that I can track how users are using it and actually see sessions from other people. Maybe other people aren't finding this as intuitive as I do. Maybe they're trying to swipe left when it isn't possible to because I'm at the end of the row. The best way to find that out is to sort of qualitatively evaluate what they're actually doing. So I'm going to use LogRocket to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the LogRocket website. I'm going to log in. You might have to create a new account, but that's easy. And then I'm just going to make a new project here. I'm going to call it Dog Gallery 3. Great. So now the next step after I've registered is to install LogRocket. There's web and mobile here. I'm going to click on mobile, and then I'm going to click on Expo because we're using Expo. So the easiest thing here is I just copy and paste this line, Expo install LogRocket React Native. Bam, here we go. That'll just take a moment to install. And then there's some lines I need to paste into my application. So I'm going to go paste that in here after the other imports, and I'm going to save it as well. Great. So now if I go back and look at my app, it looks the same. Like nothing's really changed for me as a user, except one thing I might notice is this warning that says LogRocket React Native module is missing. Please review installation instructions. The reason I'm getting this warning is because I'm using the Expo Go client from the App Store to view this. And the Expo Go client is one fixed binary that everybody gets. And it has the Expo standard library and those standard modules in it, but it doesn't have any other binary modules in it. And the way that LogRocket works is it hooks into the native layer and uses a bunch of native code to record sessions and send those to the cloud. And so we need to actually have that LogRocket native code in our app binary to be able to use the full power of LogRocket. It's really nice that the LogRocket module doesn't crash your app if you're using the Expo Go client or something that doesn't have the binary code for LogRocket in, because that means we can do development of features and bug fixes and that kind of stuff without having to necessarily do a binary build or something like that. But to actually make LogRocket work, we're going to need a real build. So anyway, how could I do that and do development? Well, I can use Expo and I can use the EAS cloud services that complement the Expo project to just do that build in the cloud and send it directly to my device. I'll show you how to do this on iOS in this webinar, but it's pretty easy and about the same for Android. So the way we'll do that is we'll first take a look at the LogRocket React Native module documentation. If I just go to this and scroll through here, it'll say, hey, this package cannot be used in the Expo Go app because it requires custom native code. So what do we do instead? All we need to do in Expo, if we're using EAS, is to add this config plugin to the plugins array of our app.json or app config.js. So I'm just going to copy this code and I'm going to go into our app.json in our project. I'm going to add an entry, anywhere under Expo that says plugins LogRocket React Native. If you go look in the installation instructions for React Native, there's actually a couple other steps. There's npx pod install if you're on iOS, and there's add this Maven URL if you're on Android. What this plugin will do is basically do all that stuff for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And if those instructions change and the plugin is updated, it'll handle it for you there as well. So as soon as we install this, then our build should sort of automatically happen. And all that stuff should be taken care of. Great. Now that I've done that, what I can do is I can just write EAS build profile development, since we're doing development, and platform all, since we might as well build iOS and Android at the same time. What this is going to tell us now is that we need to add the dev client module to our project in order to build a working dev client. We don't really have a choice here, and we want this, so we'll just say yes. It's convenient that it does it for us. And now it's going to ask me for my application ID and later my bundle ID. The default choices that the CLI suggests here are actually pretty good, so I'm just going to hit enter and accept them. It also asks me if I want to generate a new Android key store. If you're not sure what this is, just say yes. EAS can generate a key store in the cloud for you. Now it's going to upload all my code to EAS, and I'll start my Android build. For iOS, it's going to ask me what my bundle ID is. I like the default here as well. And it now asks me to log into my Apple account, since you need to have an Apple ID to build an iPhone app. I'm going to log into my Apple account. And now it's going to ask me about distribution certificates. I have a distribution certificate I've used before that'll work just fine for this. So I'm going to say yes here. And then it wants to select a device for me to run this on. I'm going to select this one. I don't need to set up push notifications for this project, so I'll just say no here and keep it simple. Now it's uploaded the code for the iOS build. So now you can see that I have one build in the queue and one build in progress. Sometimes if there's a lot of people doing a build at once, the queue will back up a little bit, but it's usually not too bad. And I can visit either of these URLs to check on the progress of each of these. These builds might take a couple of minutes because native builds usually just do, whether you're doing them on your computer or in the cloud. So I'm going to be back in just a minute when these are done. Hey there, I'm back now, and our builds are done. So I can actually install them on the device now. I'm going to focus on iOS for this webinar, but Android is pretty much the same thing. So the way I get this onto my device is, well, I can take a look at this link that it gave me. I'll open that in my web browser on my computer. This is going to show me more details about the build I just did. Here, everything's green. You can see all these green check marks, which means each step of the process completed successfully. And so once all this is completed successfully, there's this black install button right here. If I click this, it'll bring up a QR code. This is actually the same QR code as I see in my terminal. So I could actually skip going to this web page if I wanted to and just scan this QR code here. Either way will work. I'll scan this one from the web page. The way I do that is I go back to my phone, open up the camera app again, and I point it at this QR code just like I did before. Instead of saying open in Expo Go this time, it'll now say open in iTunes. The reason that's different is that instead of just loading some JavaScript that will open inside the Expo Go app, I'm actually going to download a new app binary from Expo's servers that the EAS servers just built in the cloud for me. This is actually going to include the LogRocket native code that I want to add to my project. So I tap open in iTunes, and I'll say API Expo Dev would like to install .gallery 3. Of course, I want to install it, so I'll tap install. I won't get any feedback right now from the device, but the app is installing. It should just take a second. The easiest way I can find it on my phone is actually to open the kind of quick search and type .gallery 3. Oh, there it is. I'll just tap this, and now it'll open. And so the first thing it says here is that you should start a server with expo start --dev client. There are a few things that are a little bit different about running a custom dev client versus using stuff in Expo Go. And so we have to run the dev server in a slightly different way. So what I'll do is actually Control-C out of the old yarn start, just so we don't get it mixed up with anything. And I'll type expo start --dev client, just like it said to on my phone. These tools should pop up as well. And everything should look pretty much the same as before, except if you look carefully, you'll see that the protocol in this URL is now X plus .gallery 3. So it's a little bit different, and it's pointing at the specific app binary that I'm going to use. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into that app, and I am going to tap my profile link in the top right, and then I'm going to hit login, and then I'm going to sign in here. I'm just going to use my Expo username and password to sign in to Expo here. And what this will let me do is tap this thing that says refetch development servers, and now I'll see a couple of entries here. I'm actually going to tap the first one, and it'll say it would like to find and connect devices on my local network. I'll say OK, and then I'll tap it again. I don't know why it didn't work the first time. And now I've actually just loaded up my app in this custom dev client that includes the LogRocket native code. So I should be recording these sessions to LogRocket in the cloud right now. Well, this is a nice dog. This is a great dog. Oh, what a cutie. Zoom in, I can zoom out, I can scroll back and forth, I can look at all these different dogs, and all this stuff should be being recorded to my LogRocket session. What does that mean? How can I look at this? And how can I look at this for other users? Well, all I have to do is, in my web browser on my computer, go to logrocket.com, log into my account, and now I should see my project and the latest sessions. What these sessions look like is, stuff like this, where I can see and play back, usage of the app. And I can see, here's me. This happened to me, but it could be any user. Oh, I'm scrolling through a dog photo. Now I'm going to another dog photo. Oh, I'm halfway in between scrolls. LogRocket is actually recording snapshots of each view as users use the app. And so you can see in a really concrete, qualitative way how users actually go through your app, what they get stuck on, and things that you might want to change and make better. And maybe you'll see what users really like too. So this is really awesome. And this is how you can add LogRocket to your Expo project and use it as you develop your apps.
Awesome. All right, so that was the down low on everything you need to do to kind of get Expo up and running, get LogRocket on your Expo apps. As you can see, we used a little bit of movie magic there to save you guys from the build time itself, but that's really only a few minutes. So it is a super fast process. I'm gonna kind of jump ahead again and say, okay, you've got Expo up and running, you've got LogRocket up and running. Now you want to kind of get some insights out of this, right? The app that Charlie put together there was just kind of pretty bare bones. Everything worked nice and smoothly, so we weren't pulling up any issues. But inevitably, right, with any sort of app build, you're going to run into things, whether it's issues in the code or it's issues that are just kind of UI things that where people are getting stuck, and there's a little bit of friction. So want to kind of show you how you would use LogRocket to remedy those things. So I'm in a session here. I'm actually going to start in the playback view, which is going to put our screen, our session replay front and center here. This is just kind of a little, we call it a kitchen sink app that we have at LogRocket that shows off a lot of kind of the mobile capabilities that you would have. As the session is going here, you can see we have an event timeline that's capturing all the touches, the text inputs, things like that simultaneously with the session. You'll also see any errors are coming up along the timeline here in red, and you're also getting some session data such as rough location and when it happened, IP address, that sort of thing. This is, as you can see here, an Android session. We start to get a little more granular and we head into the developer tab here. This is where we can really start to sort of pick things apart and understand what's going on. So we have all of our logs and warnings over here, and as well as our network requests here. So you can go into these sessions when somebody is telling you things are wrong, and you can quickly pinpoint what that error is. Now, an important step, obviously, is identifying that error and figuring out what's going wrong. But sometimes these things are occurring, and it's maybe only happening to one or two users, and you have a whole backlog of issues that you need to get to. So you have to kind of figure out prioritization. You have to figure out just what the impact of these issues are, and LogRocket is going to help with that as well. On the network front, we can tap into something like this 404 request, and we can quickly get a sense of how often this is happening in the past month. If we want, we can create a metric to track that and alert ourselves if it exceeds or goes below a certain threshold. And we can do something similar with errors as well. We have this handy little view issue button here. When we pop that out, that's going to give us the context of this one issue within our entire app. So we're going to see how many users and sessions it's affected. We'll see when we first saw it and how recently we've seen it. We'll see how often it's occurring over different days, and we'll get a lot of sort of metadata around who it's affecting as well. And then a couple sample sessions to sort of drive that point home. So really help to kind of contextualize this issue and allow you to figure out where it sits on your priority list. We'll even let you triage it, high impact or low impact, depending on how you are prioritizing things. And if you want, you can even create rules to say, immediately categorize all issues like this as high priority, so I know that I need to spend time on them. And then you can go ahead and just grab this URL and add it to whatever issue management system you use, whether that's a Jira or a Linear or something like that. And we do offer integrations with all those tools as well to kind of streamline that process. And this is kind of a small to large look at it. It's also possible to take LogRocket and sort of go the other direction, right? So observing things from a dashboard view and then drilling into individual sessions to kind of get to the heart of what's going wrong here. So this is just kind of a sample app dashboard that I put together within LogRocket, tracking a few things within kind of your standard, maybe e-commerce application. We have a sort of sales rate over time that's tracking conversions. We have a slightly more detailed conversion funnel here. We're tracking some technical data like memory usage and crash reports. And then as something that many app creators and developers care about. We're tracking users. We have a trend line for our returning users by day, as well as our new users. And then we're keeping track of users on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis as well. And this is all sort of demo data, so the numbers look a little odd. That's why, but on your app, obviously, LogRocket will be aggregating everything we've gotten from your sessions. You want to use this to kind of figure out how you can then improve your app. We'll let you drill down and really get to the heart of what's going on. So a great example of this is within a conversion funnel. So if we drill down into this booking funnel that we've created, we're seeing that we have kind of these 4 stages of adding to the cart, checking, going to your checkout, purchase, and then actually reaching that confirmation page. We're seeing that, between purchase and confirmation, we're doing really pretty well. But we are having pretty significant drop-offs between add to cart and checkout, and then checkout to purchase. So we can drill in here and say, show me all the sessions that didn't make it from the add to cart to the checkout step. LogRocket is going to filter those, and it's going to come up with a list of issues that we've identified as most affecting conversion between those 2 steps. It'll tell you how many sessions and conversions these issues are affecting. And if you want, you can even add some revenue insights here. If you know either your average cart size, or you can create custom things that you can tie it to, so the LogRocket will be pulling them in dynamically. And then like we did in that individual session, you can drill in, you can see the individual sessions that are affecting it. And so you can see this in action, and you can get to the heart of why people aren't converting. And then hop back into Expo. You can hopefully make a quick change if it's a button that isn't working, or if it's something where a required field lies below the fold and people don't know that they need to scroll. Hop in, make a quick code change in Expo, and use EAS to quickly push that update out to your audience fairly seamlessly. All right, so that does it for the prepared section of today's webinar. We are now going to shift into the Q&A mode. I've seen a few questions come in already, which is awesome. I am actually going to kick things off, Charlie, with a question for you. Obviously, you mentioned kind of our movie magic earlier. Can you just kind of let us know, I guess, how much time we cut out there so that people can kind of get a sense of what that end-to-end process looks like?
That's usually about ballpark 10 minutes. The iOS builds tend to take a little bit longer than the Android builds for a couple of reasons. We want to get that down as small as possible, but there's just sort of limitations currently to how fast we can make that. But a budget about 10 minutes for those builds to happen in the cloud.
Yeah, so that's still, that's an end-to-end process of maybe 25 minutes. And I guess, point of comparison, if you weren't maybe building this with Expo and EAS, you're having to build a separate app for iOS, a separate app for Android. That's, I would say, taking, many multiples longer, right?
Yeah, and you'll have to install a lot of software on your computer, which takes a lot of time and can easily get out of date and needs to be updated, things like that.
Cool, awesome. Matt, I'm going to turn things over to you for this next question. Says, LogRocket's allowing devs to view user activities. Are there some privacy concerns here? Can you talk a little bit to what LogRocket does to mitigate those privacy concerns and make sure everybody's information is safe?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially on iOS where the privacy rules are even stricter. So any sensitive data that you don't want captured, you can set tags on your elements so that that data is never leaves the client's device. So we highly recommend using those controls to make sure you're not sending any information that you don't want captured from your users. We also allow you to control the amount of time that you save the sessions. So you can save the sessions for less time so that you're not storing data forever. And then we also have a self-hosted solution. So you can store all the data on your own cloud infrastructure. So you're not having to send it to the LogRocket SaaS. So yeah, a bunch of different ways that you can control the data you capture. We're also coming out with a way that you can automatically sanitize all the data in the apps and just whitelist data that you want captured. So we have that for web, and that's coming to mobile soon as well.
Awesome. We have 2 questions here around kind of connectivity and offline and how that works when users either have no connection or a poor connection? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, great question. So I think we've all been in the case where you're driving and you go in a tunnel and you're, well, you shouldn't be using your phone in the tunnel, but say you're walking in the tunnel and you're frustrated, something's not working. So what LogRocket does, we actually will queue that data using the local file system and then send that data when connectivity comes back. So that's a great use case because a lot of bugs happen when you have connectivity issues or intermittent connectivity. So great way to debug those issues.
Awesome. Let's see, this one is a little longer, and I think, Charlie, you talked to it maybe a little bit in your video, but maybe you and Matt can talk to this a little more. So it says, this is a team that's using Expo to build their mobile apps and LogRocket currently to do session replay on the web. They've been trying to get LogRocket to work with their mobile app, but are having trouble with they're using Expo Go to preview their apps during development. So they want to know, is there a way that they can more smoothly get LogRocket to work through Expo on apps?
The key thing there is really just adding that native code to your app. You don't necessarily need to have this done when you're doing development, although you probably want to, because otherwise you can't really test to verify that LogRocket is working the way you want it to. But the key thing is making sure that in your production build, when you do that compilation of the APK, that you've got that LogRocket native code in there. The easiest way to do that is probably to use EAS build the way I showed you to. The key step there is just to remember to npm install the module, but then also add that config plugin line in your app JSON config under Expo, add that plugins LogRocket React Native. And if you do those two steps and then do an EAS build, you should get a binary that has the correct native code in it. There's other ways to do it. You can also follow the, you could do a build yourself and kind of manually add it and do the compilation yourself. So there are other paths, but the way I showed in the video earlier is pretty much the easiest way. And that should work if you do all the initialization steps right.
Great, thanks, Charlie. Let's see, couple of questions around performance here. So Matt, maybe you can talk to how we've kind of built things into LogRocket to make sure that any performance impact is very, very minimal.
Yeah, good question. So we use, as you can imagine, a bunch of techniques to minimize the performance impact of capturing this much data. So we do a lot of work on separate threads, so we're not interrupting the main thread rendering. We also heavily cache data. So we, for example, don't upload the same image twice, or we understand if we're sending the same view and minimize the amount of data. And then we also selectively change our sampling rate of how kind of granular those replays are. So all in all, we do a lot to minimize the performance impact, but definitely recommend testing it out. Make sure you're not seeing any performance impact, and obviously reach out if you see any issues. One last thing I want to add is you can definitely, we have customers who record 100% of their sessions, but you can also selectively capture certain segments of your traffic or certain types of problems that you've seen in the past so that you can better control exactly what's being captured.
Great, thank you. Let's see, next question here. Does LogRocket include what the user's Expo release channel or SDK version is in the logs when you're viewing a session replay?
That's a good question. By default, no, but it's simple to add using our JavaScript API. You can log any data you want, and that will show up in the LogRocket sessions. So that's a great way to know what native version of your app is running, as well as what JavaScript bundle. And you can definitely run into problems with, say, incompatibilities there. So would definitely recommend adding that as a log so you can debug any issues and see the Expo release channel as well as the Expo SDK version that you're running.
Awesome. Charlie, this is a question for you. Anything on the roadmap for Expo Web support in the React Native SDK?
That we'd have to work to. Right now, I don't think that LogRocket works with Expo Web, but there's obviously no reason it shouldn't be able to, because LogRocket works great on the web. And so I think if we work together, we should be able to get that done with not too much work. I'm not I can't commit to a timeline right now in this webinar, but I'll sync up with Matt and John after this call, and we'll figure out a way to get that working soon.
Awesome. I guess, Matt, this is probably for you, but Charlie, you might have a perspective on it as well. Just talking to the difference between the NPM install and the Expo install for LogRocket.
Yeah, Expo install is just a wrapper around NPM install or yarn add, except that for certain packages where you need a specific version that's like binary compatible with the rest of your Expo app, it sort of makes sure it picks the right one. But if you did an NPM install or a yarn add, in this case, it would work fine. And in 98% of cases, it works fine. We just added the Expo install command to handle those couple of cases where you need to install like a really specific, maybe slightly older version of a package that is binary compatible with the rest of the stuff you have going on. Cool.
Matt, another privacy question for you. Kind of talked to it earlier, but blurring out sensitive information like PII, is it possible, and how do you do it in LogRocket?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So you can mark any fields that have sensitive information as private, and those will never leave the client browser. So those will just show up as a blocked out element when you go to view the replay.
Perfect. Okay. Matt, one more for you here. It's actually kind of a pricing question, looking for some clarification around, LogRocket starting, our team plan started at 10,000 sessions a month. Can you just talk, I guess, a little bit about kind of how we, what we mean by a session and kind of how LogRocket is available and at kind of what levels?
Yep. So we consider a session the same as Google Analytics. So that's a period of continuous user activity. So if you were to say it's a banking app, you check your account, you scroll around a bit, and then you close the app, that would constitute one session. And so that's our unit of pricing. So our pricing starts at buying 10,000 sessions a month. And I believe that's $199 a month on mobile. So for $199 a month, you get up to 10,000 sessions, and then pricing scales up as you go to the number of sessions.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll just add that, if you just want to test the waters, LogRocket for both web and mobile, you can get free up to 1,000 sessions a month. So you just kind of want to get your feet wet, play around with it a little bit. You can hop in and get started for free, and free forever. It's not just kind of, free for a couple of weeks. All right. Looks like this will likely be our last question. Matt, said I'm on comments, maybe two more questions. Matt, can you give kind of a ballpark around data transfer for LogRocket on mobile apps?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a wide range because it depends on the application. And yeah, this person asks, is it 10 megabytes, 1 megabyte? I'd say it depends. So the best thing to do is try it out and see how that affects the overall bandwidth usage. And yeah, let us know. And you can always redact certain parts of the app if those are sending more data than others. But hard to give a ballpark just because it varies. It varies so much based on the app and the complexity.
Cool. All right, we'll make this our last question for the day. Matt, for you, when we talk about offline, is there a maximum data capacity for what can be queued up before we kind of hit a limit?
It's a good question. I guess in theory, there's always a max, and I'm not sure the exact match. So I have to check on that, but I believe it's based off the amount of file storage available to that specific app. So it likely depends on the device, depends on the operating system, and then we will cap it at a certain point, but we'll have to get back to you on that topic. So feel free to reach out to us on Intercom and we'll get you an answer there.
Awesome.
I do have one more question for Charlie. Was he actually up for those who didn't notice, the video is recorded at 5 a.m. So I was curious if you were up until 5 a.m. recording the video.
Maybe, yeah.
That's commitment for sure.
But it just made, it's so easy to do this that even, bleary eyed at 4 or 5 a.m., it's a snap, yeah. Right?
That's the test of whether the software works well.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think we'll call it there. Everyone on the line, thanks a lot for joining us. Matt, Charlie, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be sending out a recording of this very soon. So if there's anything that people missed, keep an eye on your email and you'll be able to go back and check it out. But with that, yeah, we'll send it off. Matt, Charlie, thanks again, and hope to talk to all of you soon.
Thanks so much for having
Thanks,
me.
everyone.